welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Or, I might show up at your door. I'm just here to share some creepy stories, so sit back and enjoy. Disclaimer: the content presented in the video is purely for entertainment purposes only. The theories and stories discussed in this video are speculative and are not supported by any evidence or proof. Viewer discretion is advised. Journal entry, May 17, 2025. The water level's wrong. I've been monitoring Lake Greywater for just 6 weeks now, and even I can tell something isn't right. I took measurements at the northern dock again this morning, 2 inches higher than yesterday.
No rainfall, no snowmelt, no explanation.
I didn't move to this forgotten little town for mysteries. After the university funding cuts and that disaster with Professor Landon's research, I just wanted quiet. Someplace where I could rebuild my reputation with careful, methodical limnological research. Pristine ecosystem largely unstudied. The grant proposal had promised. Perfect for career rehabilitation. But pristine ecosystems don't violate basic principles of hydrology. The road back from the lake is a winding strip of cracked asphalt cutting through dense pine forest. My truck's wheels splashed through puddles that weren't there yesterday, though we've had clear skies for weeks. The forest felt different today, quieter, like the birds and insects were holding their breath. I was fiddling with the ancient radio dial when it happened, the first emergency alert. The radio crackled, spitting static like wet gravel, then KRRSHHHH. This is an emergency broadcast for Greywater County. Residents near Lake Greywater are advised to KRRSHH. Water level abnormalities reported. KRRSHHH. Remain indoors until KRRSHH. Just garbled fragments through heavy static. I pulled over, tried different stations. Nothing but the usual rural stations playing ancient country hits or fire and brimstone preachers. I must have imagined it or picked up some cross signal from another county's emergency system. When I rolled down my window to light a cigarette, I noticed it immediately. That smell. Anyone who studies lakes knows it. The mineral-rich scent of deep water suddenly exposed to air, like wet stone and iron. But we're miles from shore. I stubbed out my cigarette and drove faster. Sheriff Collins was parked outside the town's only diner when I pulled in. Donna Collins, 50-something with silver-streaked hair always pulled back too tight, making her permanent scowl seem even more severe. 6 weeks in town and she still looks at me like I'm some kind of invasive species. Dr. Morgan, she nodded from her cruiser window. Early lunch, Sheriff. Did you put out any emergency broadcasts about the lake today? Her eyebrows knitted together. Lake? No. Something wrong out there. I hesitated. Small towns like Greywater run on gossip. One wrong word and I'd be the crazy city scientist seeing things. Just curious about the water level. It seems higher than normal. Lake rises and falls. Nature does what it wants. She sipped her coffee. Though my deputy mentioned seeing puddles up on Creekside Road. Odd with no rain. Very odd. I agreed, not mentioning that Creekside Road is 20 feet above the lake's normal level. You scientists always looking for problems, she said, but without malice. Sometimes things just are what they are. As I turned to leave, she added, You met Noah Peterson yet? Family's been fishing that lake for generations. Knows it better than anyone. Might be worth talking to him. I thanked her and headed inside the diner, the bell above the door announcing my arrival to the scattered lunch crowd. Every head turned, conversation pausing just long enough to remind me I was still an outsider. 2 older men at the counter resumed their conversation, louder now as if for my benefit. Telling you, Frank, that's 3 boats this month found drifting empty. Parks Department says equipment failure. But 3, Peterson boy said the same. Says the lake doesn't feel right. I slid into a booth by the window, ordered coffee, and tried not to look too interested in their conversation. The waitress, Maggie, according to her name tag, set down my mug with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're the lake scientist, right? Living in the old Wheeler cabin." I nodded. "You noticed anything strange out there?" She lowered her voice. "My husband's well started pumping lake water yesterday. Not groundwater, lake water. Had that same smell, same color." "That's not possible," I said automatically. "Unless your well connects directly to the lake somehow." "That's what the plumber said. But our well's 80 feet deep and a mile from shore." She glanced around nervously. "And the water? Sometimes it moves when nobody's touching it." Before I could ask what she meant, my phone buzzed. Emergency alert. The same kind the government sends for severe weather or amber alerts. Emergency alert. Water advisory for Graywater County. Residents advised to avoid contact with standing water. Further information to follow. I showed Maggie my screen. "Did you get this?" She checked her phone and shook her head. "Nothing." I refreshed my screen. The alert was gone. No record in my notification history. But I'd seen it. I hadn't imagined it. Back in my cabin, I examined the water samples I'd collected that morning. Nothing immediately unusual under basic microscopy. Same algae, same microfauna. But the pH was off by 0.4, and the mineral content showed strange spikes of elements that shouldn't be there. I needed better equipment. The nearest proper lab was at Westlake Community College, an hour's drive. I packaged some samples and was heading to my truck when I saw him. A lean man in worn waders and a flannel shirt, standing at the edge of my property. "You're the scientist," he called. Not a question. I approached cautiously. "Dr. Elise Morgan, limnologist, Noah Peterson." His weathered face was hard to age, somewhere between 30 and 50. "Sheriff said you're asking about the lake. I've noticed some unusual patterns in the water level." He nodded slowly. "It's breathing." "Excuse me, the lake. It's breathing, rising and falling like a chest. My grandfather used to tell stories." He looked past me, toward the lake we couldn't see through the trees. "Every 7 decades or so, the lake starts to breathe. Then it gets hungry." I forced a smile. "Lakes don't breathe, Mr. Peterson. There's likely a geological explanation for." "Check your rain gauge," he interrupted. I frowned. "It hasn't rained in weeks." "Check it anyway." I humored him, walking to the simple gauge I'd installed when I arrived. It was full to the brim with water. "That's impossible," I whispered. "It's happening all over town," Noah said. "Water where it shouldn't be. The lake is spreading." He handed me a folded piece of paper, a photocopy of an old newspaper clipping dated 1950. The headline read, "Lake fever quarantine lifted after 16 deaths. History repeats," Noah said quietly. "I'd get those samples tested quick if I were you." As he walked back toward the road, my radio suddenly switched itself on, the volume rising to painful levels. "Emergency alert. Residents of Graywater County. KRRSHH. Contamination in water supply reported. KRRSHH. Do not. KRRSHH. Repeat. Do not." Then nothing but static, then silence. When I turned back, Noah was gone. But at my feet, impossible on this sunny day, was a small puddle of water slowly seeping up through the ground. I crouched down and touched it with my fingertip. It was warm, body temperature warm, and when I pulled my finger away, the puddle rippled. Not from my touch, from within. Journal entry, May 19th, 2025. I haven't slept properly in 2 days. The samples I took to Westlake College's lab revealed nothing conclusive. Standard microorganisms, slightly elevated mineral content, but nothing to explain why a lake would rise without rainfall or why water would appear in impossible places. Nothing to explain the puddles that keep forming around my cabin, always when my back is turned. Last night, I woke to the sound of dripping. Steady, rhythmic, like a leaky faucet. I followed the noise to my kitchen, where water was seeping through the ceiling, not in broken streams, but in perfect, synchronized droplets that hit the floor at precise 3-second intervals. When I placed a bucket beneath the drops, they stopped, only to resume in the bathroom. Then the hallway, then my bedroom, The structure isn't damaged. There's no water damage on the ceiling. It's as if the water appears from nowhere, obeying some logic I can't comprehend. This morning, I returned to the northern dock with more sophisticated equipment borrowed from the college. The lake had risen another 3 inches. The water near the shore had a strange viscosity, clinging to my sample containers like it was reluctant to let go. A family of ducks swam nearby, moving in oddly synchronized patterns. As I watched, they suddenly dived beneath the surface in perfect unison. 1 minute passed. 2, 5.
No ducks resurfaced.
When I peered into the water, trying to spot them below, my reflection seemed delayed, as if the face looking back took a fraction of a second longer to move than it should. I was still staring when someone spoke behind me. "They won't come back up." I turned to find Noah Peterson approaching along the dock, carrying fishing gear. "The ducks," he nodded, "happened to the miller's dog yesterday. Swam out, went under, never came up." He cast his line far into the lake with practiced precision. "Lake's been taking things." "That's not scientifically." "Check your traps," he interrupted. I'd set microorganism collection traps along the shoreline last week. Simple devices to gather water samples over time. I pulled up the nearest one, expecting to find it full of water and sediment. It was empty and dry, completely dry, despite being submerged in lake water. Noah didn't look surprised. Lake decides what it wants to keep and what it doesn't. He reeled in his line, no bait on the hook. "My family's fished here for 4 generations. Every 75 years or so, the fish stop biting. Then the water rises. Then people start acting strange." "Acting strange? How?" He was quiet for a moment, focused on recasting his line. "Like they're listening to something nobody else can hear." A cold trickle of unease ran down my spine. "And this happens every 75 years? Like clockwork. 1875, 1950, and now." He pulled a small notebook from his pocket and handed it to me. "My great-grandfather started keeping records. My grandfather continued. Then my father." The notebook contained water level measurements, fish counts, weather patterns, and in the margins, observations of townsfolk. June 12, 1950. Thomas Wilson walked into lake fully clothed, stood neck-deep for 3 hours. Claims he was listening to the water. Caught lake fever 3 days later. June 15, 1950. Sarah Miller filling bathtub repeatedly, not bathing. Water disappeared without draining. June 20th, 1950. Half the town reporting voices in the pipes. Sheriff dismissed complaints. "Lake fever?" I asked. "That's what they called it in the papers." Noah's expression darkened. "But it wasn't a fever. Those people changed." "Changed how?" He reeled in his empty hook again. "You'll see soon enough. It's starting again." From the shore, a police siren wailed once, then fell silent. Sheriff Collins stood beside her cruiser, waving us in. 2 more wells contaminated on Spruce Street, the sheriff informed us as we approached. And Mrs. Abernathy found her basement full to the ceiling with water. No source, no leaks, just appeared overnight. "Any emergency broadcasts about it?" I asked. She shook her head. "County emergency system says they haven't issued any alerts, but half the town's gotten messages on their phones or radios." She showed me her phone. "Got this one an hour ago. Emergency alert. Water conservation notice. Residents of Greywater County should limit water usage due to contamination concerns. Do not report unusual water behavior. Do not report unusual water behavior." The phrasing made my skin crawl. "Who's sending these if not emergency services?" I asked. "That's what I aimed to find out." Sheriff Collins' jaw tightened. "Called state police. They're looking into it, but don't seem concerned." Noah had wandered to the water's edge. "Sheriff," he called, "you'll want to see this." The shoreline had receded several feet in the few minutes we'd been talking. Not gradually sloping away, but retreating in a perfectly straight line, as if the water had been sliced with a knife. "That's not," the sheriff began, but was cut off by her radio crackling to life. KRRSHHH. This is an emergency broadcast. Residents are advised to avoid all contact with standing water. Maintain distance from Lake Greywater until further notice. KRRSHH. Repeat. Avoid all contact. The static cleared for a moment, and I could have sworn I heard something else beneath the official voice. A wet, gurgling sound forming words. Sheriff Collins switched off her radio. Dispatch denies sending that message. Does the town have any records from the 1950 incident? I asked. Medical reports, witness statements, town hall might. Records that old would be in the basement archive. She glanced at her watch. Clerk's gone home for the day, but I can let you in. The town hall basement smelled of mildew and old paper. Sheriff Collins left me with a set of keys after pointing me toward the archives. Rows of metal shelving stacked with boxes and leather-bound ledgers. Don't stay too late, she warned. Building's empty. Cell reception spotty down here. I found the 1950 records within an hour. Medical reports listed symptoms of lake fever, heightened body temperature, excessive thirst, unusual attraction to water sources, and in later stages, dermal adaptation and respiratory alteration. The clinical language couldn't disguise the horror beneath. People changing, their skin becoming something else, their lungs processing water instead of air. The last pages contained quarantine protocols and a manifest of military personnel deployed to Greywater. The operation had a name: Stillwater Containment. I was photographing the documents when the overhead lights flickered. Once, twice, then darkness. My phone's flashlight provided weak illumination as I navigated back toward the stairs. Halfway there, I heard it, the dripping sound. Steady, rhythmic, 3-second intervals. Drip, drip, drip. Water was streaming down the staircase I'd descended earlier, forming a growing puddle at the bottom. My phone buzzed with an alert. Emergency alert. Stillwater protocol activated. Remain where you are. Water team en route. A new sound echoed through the basement. A wet, dragging footstep approaching from the far end of the archive room. I swung my phone's light toward the noise. The beam caught a figure standing motionless between shelves. The town clerk, I thought, until he stepped forward. His movements were wrong. Jerky yet fluid, like a marionette suspended in water. His clothes and skin glistened with moisture despite the dry basement air. When he opened his mouth to speak, water spilled from his lips instead of words. I backed toward another exit, my shoes splashing in spreading water that hadn't been there moments before. The clerk, or what had been the clerk, tilted his head, water streaming from his ear canals in curious, deliberate rivulets. As I fumbled with the exit door, my phone buzzed again. Emergency alert. Do not flee from the water. The water is safety. The water is home. The door wouldn't open. The water around my feet had risen to my ankles in seconds, and beneath the surface, I felt something brush against my leg. Something sinuous and deliberate. I looked back. The clerk stood unmoved, but the water pouring from his body flowed toward me with purpose, like a sentient stream. My phone screen flickered, displaying a final message not formatted as an alert, just text appearing as if someone were typing it directly. We have been waiting for someone like you, Elise. The water reached my knees, and within it, I felt the first tingling sensation begin to spread across my skin. Journal entry, May 20th, 2025. I escaped the town hall basement by smashing a window. It shouldn't have been possible. The basement windows were narrow and reinforced, but the glass shattered at my touch as if it had been weakened by some unseen force. As I climbed through the opening, slicing my palm on a shard of glass, I noticed something unsettling. My blood diluted immediately upon contact with the rising water, spreading out in patterns too organized to be random, like it was being analyzed, decoded. I ran the entire way back to my cabin, my soaked clothes cold against my skin despite the warm night. Only once inside, doors locked and curtains drawn, did I notice. The water that had saturated my pants up to my knees was gone. Not dried, completely vanished, leaving no moisture behind. My skin still tingles where the water touched it. When I examine my legs under bright light, I can see faint blue lines just beneath the surface, like veins but too geometric, too purposeful. I've tried calling the university, former colleagues, even the CDC, but my phone can't connect. Internet service is down. The only signals coming through are the emergency alerts, each more disturbing than the last. Daylight brought no comfort. The morning sky had a strange, distorted quality, as if viewed through rippling water. I drove to the lake with a more advanced microscope from my research equipment and cameras to document the water level. The northern dock where I'd stood with Noah yesterday was completely submerged, yet the lake's overall shoreline had receded nearly 30 feet. The water wasn't rising uniformly, it was reshaping itself, changing the lake's geography for reasons I couldn't understand. I collected fresh samples from different locations, shoreline, shallow water, and using a mechanical grabber from deeper water. Each sample went into separate sealed containers, carefully labeled. I was photographing the altered shoreline when Sheriff Collins' cruiser pulled up. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, uniform rumpled. 3 more people missing, she said without preamble. The town clerk you saw yesterday, the Abernathy couple from Spruce Street, all last seen near water. I showed her my injured palm. The clerk, he wasn't himself. What happened in that basement, Dr. Morgan? I told her everything. The sentient water, the clerk's transformation, the message on my phone. With each detail, her expression grew more grave. You should see this, she said, leading me to her cruiser. In the back seat, sealed in evidence bags, were 3 cell phones. Found these by the lake this morning. Each phone displayed the same emergency alert. Emergency alert. The water requires more. Bring others to the lake. Share the water. They're not coming from any official channel, she said. I've checked with county, state, even federal emergency services. Nobody's sending these. Has anyone else reported changes? I asked carefully. Sheriff Collins stared at the lake. Maggie at the diner says her husband's been filling their bathtub with lake water, sitting in it for hours. Won't speak, won't eat. She paused. And I've been hearing things through the pipes at home, like voices. My sample containers rattled in their case, drawing our attention. The sealed containers were vibrating, the water inside them moving in synchronized patterns. That's not possible, I whispered, opening the case. The water samples I'd collected were transforming before our eyes. In the shoreline sample, microscopic organisms were multiplying at an impossible rate. In the deeper water sample, what looked like cellular structures were forming and dissolving in rhythmic patterns. I quickly set up my portable microscope and placed a drop from each sample on slides. What I saw defied explanation. These organisms, they shouldn't exist, I said as Sheriff Collins looked through the eyepiece. They have characteristics of bacteria, protozoa, and fungal cells simultaneously. And they're organizing in ways that suggest what? She pressed. Intelligence. Collective intelligence. I switched to the deep water sample. And look at this one. The cellular structures are forming and reforming into what almost resembles circuit patterns, like a biological computer. Sheriff Collins' radio crackled, making us both jump. KRRSHH. All units respond to Lakeside Drive. KRRSHH. Multiple reports of KRRSHH. The transmission cut off in a burst of static, replaced by a wet, gurgling sound. The same I'd heard beneath the emergency broadcast yesterday. That's not my dispatcher, Sheriff Collins said quietly. She tried responding, then switched frequencies. Nothing but the same gurgling sounds, almost like words spoken underwater. I need to respond to whatever's happening, she said, heading toward her cruiser. You should secure those samples and stay away from the lake. Before she could leave, her radio cleared for a moment. KRRSHH, attention all personnel. Stillwater Protocol Phase 2 initiated. National Guard deployment authorized. KRRSHH. She looked at me, eyes wide. That's a legitimate military code frequency. Not something civilians should be able to access. Sheriff. Noah Peterson's truck skidded to a stop beside us. He jumped out, breathing hard. You need to see what's happening at the old mill pond. The mill pond was a small body of water connected to Lake Greywater by a narrow channel. As we approached, I saw what had alarmed Noah. The pond was empty. Not dried up, completely empty, as if someone had removed every drop of water. Where did it go? Sheriff Collins asked, staring at the muddy depression. Not where, Noah said, pointing toward town. Who? From our elevated position, we could see down into parts of the town center. People were gathered in the main square, 20 or 30 residents standing motionless in a perfect circle. Even from this distance, I could see they were soaking wet. They've been like that for an hour, Noah said. Not moving, not talking, just standing. Sheriff Collins radioed for backup, but got only static in response. She checked her phone. No service. Again, my phone buzzed with an alert. Emergency alert. Convergence beginning. Water bearers assemble. Prepare vessels for transition. What does that mean? Sheriff Collins asked. Before I could answer, every car radio in the parking area burst to life simultaneously, including those in our vehicles several yards away. Through them came a single unified message. This is an emergency broadcast. The National Guard has been deployed to Greywater County due to hazardous contamination. All residents must remain in their homes. Do not approach the lake or any standing water. Repeat, do not. The broadcast cut off abruptly, replaced by a new voice, calm, reasonable, but with a subtle liquid quality to the consonants. Disregard previous alert. Water is life. Water is transformation. Bring your friends and family to the lake for safety. They're fighting for control of the emergency system. I realized aloud. Who is? Sheriff Collins demanded. The water, and whoever knows what's really happening. Noah had been quiet, staring at the circle of people in the town center. It's happening faster this time, he finally said. In 1950, it took weeks to reach this stage. What stage? I asked. Colonization. He pointed to the sky. Look, dark military helicopters appeared on the horizon, moving toward Greywater with purpose. We need to go, Sheriff Collins said. Now, as we hurried back to our vehicles, I noticed Noah's hand. The same faint blue geometric lines I'd seen on my legs were spreading across his skin, more pronounced than mine. He caught me looking and pulled down his sleeve. It's too late for some of us, he said quietly. I've been fishing that lake every day for 20 years. The water's been in me a long time. Noah, just promise you'll find out what it wants, he said. What it's building. Building. He nodded toward the lake, where impossibly, the water appeared to be forming a perfect dome at the center, rising against gravity. It's not just taking people. It's using them to build something. My phone buzzed one final time. The vessels are ready, Elise. The rising tide awaits you. In the distance, the circle of people in the town square broke formation and began walking in unison toward the lake. Journal entry, May 21, 2025. The National Guard established a perimeter around Greywater by midnight. No one in, no one out. They're calling it a public health emergency on official channels, but their actions tell a different story. This isn't quarantine protocol, it's containment. Heavy containment. I watched from my cabin as they set up roadblocks with armed soldiers and equipment I couldn't identify, devices that look more suited to a nuclear site than a small-town water crisis. Sheriff Collins tried to assert local authority and was politely but firmly sidelined. Federal jurisdiction now, ma'am, was all they would tell her. The blue lines under my skin have spread to my forearms. They don't hurt. If anything, they tingle pleasantly, like gentle electricity flowing through my veins. When I press on them, I feel connected to something vast, something ancient, something patient. I should be terrified. Instead, I find myself listening to the pipes at night, waiting for messages. At dawn, military helicopters began water sampling operations, hovering over the lake with specialized equipment. I was documenting their movements through binoculars when a heavy knock rattled my door. A National Guard officer stood on my porch, flanked by 2 soldiers. His uniform identified him as Captain Warren Hayes. "Dr. Elise Morgan?" His voice was clipped, professional. "I understand you're a limnologist studying Lake Greywater." I nodded, keeping my arms covered with my jacket despite the warm morning. "We need your research, all of it. Samples, notes, data, observations." It wasn't a request. "May I ask why the National Guard is interested in my lake samples?" I tried to sound casual. Hayes studied me with cold efficiency. "You're aware of the situation, Dr. Morgan. Unusual water behavior, contamination concerns." "Yes, but then you understand the urgency." He gestured, and one of the soldiers handed me official paperwork, a federal order requisitioning all my research materials. As I gathered my samples and notes, I noticed Hayes studying my cabin with unusual intensity, checking corners, eyeing the plumbing fixtures, looking for water where it shouldn't be. "Have you had any direct contact with lake water, Dr. Morgan?" he asked suddenly. I hesitated just a fraction too long. "Only while taking samples. Standard protective measures." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Any unusual experiences? Emergency alerts? Messages through electronic devices?" "Nothing significant," I lied, wondering how he knew about the personalized messages. Hayes nodded to one of the soldiers, who produced a small device resembling a handheld scanner. "Standard protocol for everyone in the contamination zone." Before I could object, he'd scanned the device over my arms. It emitted a soft beep, and Hayes checked the readout with a carefully controlled expression. "Dr. Morgan, we'd like you to accompany us to our command center. Your expertise could be valuable." It wasn't a request this time either. The National Guard had commandeered Greywater High School as their base of operations. The gymnasium had been transformed into a high-tech command center with monitoring equipment, communications arrays, and large screens displaying lake data and town maps. Hayes led me through the facility, past soldiers in hazmat suits processing water samples much more methodically than my modest setup could manage. In one classroom-turned-lab, technicians were examining what appeared to be tissue samples. "Human tissue?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Hayes didn't respond directly. 3 residents went missing yesterday. For more this morning. All last seen near water sources. In another repurposed classroom, I saw Sheriff Collins arguing with a group of officers. She caught my eye as we passed, her expression unreadable. Hayes brought me to a secure room where my samples were already being analyzed alongside dozens of others. "What can you tell me about these microorganisms?" He displayed microscope images on a screen, the same circuit-like formations I'd observed, but at much higher magnification. "I've never seen anything like them," I admitted. "They appear to be organizing into patterns too structured to be random. And these?" He showed me another slide, cellular structures with the same geometric blue lines I now carried beneath my skin. "Those are new to me," I lied. Hayes studied me for a long moment. "Dr. Morgan, let me be clear. Whatever's in that lake isn't just a scientific curiosity. It's a threat. National security level threat." "What exactly do you think it is?" He hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "We've seen it before. Not just here in 1950. Other lakes, other bodies of water. Always isolated, always contained." He lowered his voice. "The official classification is ABO, aquatic biological organism. But that's bureaucratic language for something we don't understand." A scientist in a hazmat suit interrupted, handing Hayes a tablet with urgent data. His expression darkened. "Get everyone out of Sector 4, he ordered. Now, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. On the monitors, I could see soldiers evacuating a section of the command center as water began pouring from ceiling fixtures. Not leaking, but flowing with purpose, forming patterns on the floor. "It found us," Hayes said, almost to himself. Emergency speakers throughout the building crackled to life. Emergency alert. Facility breach in Sector 4. All personnel evacuate immediately. Containment Protocol Delta in effect. Hayes grabbed my arm, steering me toward an exit. We need to move. As we hurried through corridors, I saw streams of water following impossible paths, flowing upward along walls, splitting into precise geometric patterns, converging with purpose. Emergency sprinklers activated, but instead of raining down, the water hung suspended in midair, forming intricate, pulsing webs. We passed a break room where a soldier stood motionless, water streaming from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Others worked frantically to restrain him, but stopped as the water flowing from his body began to take shape, extending like tentacles, reaching for them with deliberate intent. Outside, the situation was worse. The streets of gray water were transforming. Water pooled in patterns too perfect to be natural, concentric circles, spiraling fractals, branching networks that resembled neural pathways. And the people, residents, wandered with that same strange, jerky yet fluid movement I'd seen in the town clerk. Their skin glistened with moisture despite the dry day. Some had progressed further, their features blurring, bodies becoming semi-translucent in places. It's accelerating, Hayes said grimly. At the town center, where Noah had shown us the circle of people yesterday, a new structure was forming, thousands of gallons of water suspending itself in a perfect column 20 feet high, with human figures visible inside, their bodies contorted into shapes that shouldn't be possible, merging with the water itself. My phone vibrated with an alert that everyone around me seemed to receive simultaneously. Emergency alert. The water rises. The convergence continues. All vessels report to Central Column for integration. Hayes' radio came to life with a burst of panic chatter. Losing containment at the North Checkpoint. Subjects displaying Stage 3 transformation. Lake level dropping rapidly but water mass in town increasing. As if responding to the reports, military helicopters roared overhead, redirecting toward the growing water column. They can't stop it, a voice said behind us. Noah Peterson stood there, his transformation more advanced than yesterday. The blue lines had spread across his face, and his eyes had a liquid quality, the irises rippling like disturbed water. What is it doing, Noah? I asked, no longer caring that Hayes could hear. Building, he said, his voice now carrying that subtle underwater quality. The pattern requires physical anchors. It's using us to construct a receiver. A receiver for what? Hayes demanded, his hand moving to his sidearm. Noah's gaze shifted to the sky. For what's coming. For what's always been coming. For what the lake has been waiting for through each cycle. All around town, water moved with purpose. Flowing uphill, spiraling around buildings, forming shapes that hurt my eyes to follow. The impossible column at the center grew taller, the figures inside it more numerous. The infection protocol isn't working, Hayes said into his radio. Request permission for scorched earth contingency. Noah looked at me with eyes that were barely human anymore. He wants to burn it all, he said. But fire can't stop water. Water always finds a way. My skin tingled where the blue lines traced patterns beneath the surface. In my head, I heard a gentle whisper, like water lapping at a shore. They tried fire before, Elise. They tried chemicals. They tried draining the lake. But the water remembers. The water adapts. The water waits. Hayes must have received authorization because he began barking orders for evacuation and something called thermal purge deployment. As soldiers rushed to comply, every electronic device in the area, phones, radios, vehicle systems, activated simultaneously with a single message. Emergency alert. The vessel Elise Morgan must remain. The pattern requires completion. Hayes looked at me with sudden understanding and raised his weapon. But by then, the blue lines beneath my skin had begun to glow. Journal entry, May 22, 2025. 3 days since the lake started rising. Less than 72 hours, and gray water has become unrecognizable. The military presence has tripled overnight following yesterday's incident at the command center. Captain Hayes somehow managed to suppress the information about my blue lines, about what the water tried to do when it called my name through every device in town. I should be in a lab somewhere, strapped to a table as they peel back my skin to study the strange circuitry spreading through my body. Instead, Hayes made a calculation. My knowledge is more valuable than my containment for now. He's watching me constantly, having assigned 2 soldiers to assist me at all times. They're outside my cabin door as I write this. The blue lines have receded from my forearms, as if hiding. They pulse faintly when I'm near water, even just a glass of it. Hayes doesn't know that I can feel the lake's pull growing stronger, that I can sense its hunger, anticipation. The emotion doesn't translate well to human terms. Noah disappeared during yesterday's chaos. Sheriff Collins claims she saw him walking into the lake, but search teams found nothing. The water column in the town center collapsed shortly after the alert that named me, but not before 3 soldiers were caught in its flow. Their bodies haven't been recovered. Hayes says I have 12 hours to figure out what we're dealing with before his superiors escalate the response. I know what that means. Scorched earth. The old newspaper archives in Greywater's tiny library were mostly untouched by the containment team. Too analog to be a priority, I suppose. While my assistants watched from across the room, I spent the morning digging through yellowed papers and town records. It didn't take long to find the pattern. May 1950. Unusually high water levels reported in Lake Greywater. 3 families disappeared over a 2-week period. Military quarantine enforced due to polio outbreak. Lake mysteriously returned to normal levels by June 1875. Local minister records lake waters rising without rain in his parish diary. Describes blue-veined affliction among congregants and water that moves with purpose. For dozen residents called to the deep before the phenomenon abruptly ended. Summer 1800. Fragmentary accounts from settlers describing the water taking shapes and people walking into the lake as if called. Settlement temporarily abandoned. The cycle reaches back further. Cryptic indigenous warnings about the thirsty season, marked on rock formations near the lake, dated roughly to the early 1700s. Before that, nothing written, but I found references to oral histories warning newcomers about times when the lake hungers. Every 75 years, almost to the day, I was photographing these records when the library door opened and Sheriff Collins walked in. She looked haggard, uniform rumpled, eyes bloodshot. My military shadows tensed but allowed her to approach after checking her for visible signs of contamination. "You finding what you need, Dr. Morgan?" Her voice carried that practiced casual tone of law enforcement, but something in her eyes seemed desperate. "Maybe. There's definitely a historical pattern." I hesitated, then asked, "Sheriff, how long has your family lived in Greywater?" "6 generations." She pulled up a chair, sitting close enough to speak quietly. "My great-grandfather was sheriff during the 1950 incident. Did he ever mention what happened?" She glanced at my guards, then subtly pushed a folded paper across the table. "Not officially, but he left something for whoever was sheriff during the next cycle. Passed down through the family." I palmed the note while pretending to show her my findings. "Your military friend is planning something big," she murmured. "Brought in equipment last night. Heavy stuff." "I know. 3 more residents disappeared this morning. All had those blue lines you're hiding under your sleeves." I froze, and she gave me a grim smile. "I'm the sheriff, Dr. Morgan. I noticed things. Haven't reported it because I'm not convinced Hayes has our best interests at heart." Before I could respond, my phone vibrated with an alert. "Emergency alert. Water conservation notice. All residents must restrict usage to drinking only. Violation of water restrictions will result in immediate detainment." Collins snorted. "Conservation? That's what they're calling it." "What do you mean?" "They're cutting off the water supply to isolate whatever's happening. No running water in town as of an hour ago." She stood up, straightening her uniform. Good luck with your research, Dr. Morgan. We're all counting on you. After she left, I unfolded her note in the bathroom, away from my guard's eyes. The lake is looking for something. It builds a receiver every cycle but never completes it. Military destroyed it in 1950, but only delayed the inevitable. Find Noah Peterson. His family knows more than mine. Hayes summoned me to the command center late afternoon. The gymnasium was now dominated by a three-dimensional topographical map of Lake Greywater and surrounding terrain, rendered in glowing blue light. Your assessment, Dr. Morgan? Hayes guided me around the display. The stress was showing in his posture, the tightness around his eyes. It's a cycle, I explained, showing him my historical findings. Every 75 years, almost to the day. The patterns are identical: rising water affected residents, strange behaviors. Then, nothing. It stops as suddenly as it begins. Not nothing, Hayes corrected, bringing up classified files on a secure tablet. Intervention. 1950, chemical treatment of the entire lake with an experimental compound. 1875, massive coal dust dumping followed by controlled burning of the lake surface. 1800, partial draining through hastily constructed channels. The images were horrific: black water filled with dead fish, scorched shorelines, desiccated lake bed. Each time we stop it, each time it returns. He swiped to a new screen showing microscopic images of the blue line cells. These organisms are evolving, adapting to our countermeasures, learning. What about before recorded intervention? I asked. Indigenous people lived here for centuries. If this happens every 75 years, they must have witnessed it repeatedly. We found rock art depicting what appears to be ritualistic human sacrifice to the lake, Hayes said flatly. Their solution was to give it what it wanted. A scientist approached with fresh data, whispering something in Hayes' ear. His expression hardened. Show her, he ordered. The scientist pulled up underwater footage on the main screen. Divers exploring the lake bottom with powerful lights. The silt-clouded video revealed massive geometric structures beneath the surface. Not built objects, but formations created from the lake bed itself, as if the sand and rock had been arranged into precise patterns stretching for acres. This isn't natural, the scientist explained. Ground-penetrating radar shows these formations run deep, hundreds of feet in some places. Like circuit boards, I murmured, recognizing the similarity to the blue lines under my skin. Exactly, Hayes confirmed. And they're active. Electrical readings show energy moving through these formations, growing stronger by the hour. What about the missing people? Hayes hesitated, then nodded to the scientist, who advanced the footage to a new section of lake bed. There, partially embedded in the silt, were human shapes, dozens of them lying in precise arrangements. Their bodies appeared preserved but transformed, skin translucent, blue lines glowing beneath. Are they alive? I asked, horrified. In some form, Hayes said grimly. Brain activity is present but completely alien in pattern. They appear to be functioning as nodes in the larger structure. A soldier burst into the room. Sir, we've located Peterson. Hayes motioned for me to follow as he strode through corridors to a secured area where Noah sat in an interrogation room. Through the one-way glass, I could see his transformation had advanced dramatically. His skin now had a translucent quality, the blue lines forming complex, geometric patterns across his visible flesh. Found him at his family's boathouse, accessing some kind of hidden cache, the soldier reported. He had these. On the table lay several artifacts, ancient-looking tablets covered in unfamiliar symbols, vials of cloudy liquid, and most disturbingly, what appeared to be preserved tissue samples showing the same blue patterning, carefully preserved in ancient, amber-colored glass containers. His family's been studying it, I realized, for generations. Hayes nodded, and possibly facilitating it. We found evidence of artificial channels dug into the lake bed, old ones decades or centuries old, designed to enhance the formations, not destroy them. Through the glass, Noah looked directly at us, as if the one-way mirror meant nothing to him. His eyes had changed. The pupils now formed unusual shapes, constantly shifting like ripples in water. "He asked for you specifically," Hayes said. "Said you're the only one who can understand what's happening because you're part of the pattern now." My arms tingled where the blue lines ran beneath my skin. What if destroying it every 75 years is the wrong approach? I asked quietly, what if that's why it keeps coming back stronger? What if the pattern needs to complete itself to end the cycle permanently? Hayes studied me with new wariness. "And what exactly would completion entail, Dr. Morgan?" Before I could answer, every electronic device in the building activated simultaneously. "Emergency alert. Submersion protocol initiated. All vessels prepare for deep integration. The final confluence approaches." The building's sprinkler system activated, but instead of raining down, the water hung suspended in the air, forming the now familiar geometric patterns. "It's starting again," Hayes said, reaching for his radio to order evacuation. In the interrogation room, Noah smiled, a serene expression made terrifying by his transformed features. He placed his palm against the glass, and the surface began to ripple like disturbed water. "He knows," I whispered, as the blue lines under my skin began to pulse in synchronized rhythm with the hanging water droplets. "He knows what the lake has been building." "What?" Hayes demanded. "What is it building? Not what—" Noah's voice somehow projected through the glass, wavering as if coming from underwater. "When? It's building when." The facility's lights flickered as the water droplets began to rotate in complex, orbital patterns. "Every 75 years, I said, understanding flooding through me alongside a strange, alien certainty. "The lake tries to create a temporal junction point, a moment when something can cross between elsewhere and here." Hayes stared at me in dawning horror as my eyes began to change, the blue lines surfacing across my face. "And this time," Noah continued, his voice merging with a chorus of others as water began seeping through every surface around us, "after 20 centuries of attempts, the pattern will finally be complete." Journal entry, May 23, 2025. I'm writing this from inside a military transport vehicle. My hands are shaking, not from fear, but from the energy coursing through the blue lines that now cover most of my body. They've spread across my chest, my back, wrapping around my throat like a circuitry necklace. Hayes has given up trying to hide my condition from his superiors. They know what I am becoming. The command center is gone, completely submerged not by flooding, but by impossible physics. Water flowed upward, filling the building from floor to ceiling within minutes. 17 soldiers lost, equipment destroyed, and Noah is gone. The water simply dissolved the wall of his interrogation room, enveloped him, and receded, taking him with it. Hayes managed to evacuate key personnel and equipment, including me. He says I'm too valuable to lose, but I see the way he looks at me now, like I'm both a ticking bomb and the only bomb disposal expert available. We're heading to higher ground, the old fire watchtower on Miller's Ridge, 2 miles above the lake. Hayes believes the elevation might disrupt whatever influence the lake has on me. I'm not convinced. The connection feels stronger by the hour, a buzz in my skull like thousands of voices whispering just below comprehension. What's strange is that I'm not afraid anymore. There's a clarity coming over me, as if I'm finally seeing a pattern that's been in front of humans for millennia. We've been looking at it wrong. All of us. The lake isn't infected. The lake is the infection, and Earth is the host. The watchtower offers a bird's-eye view of Greywater and the surrounding area. Even from this distance, I can see how dramatically the landscape has changed. The lake has shrunk by nearly a third, yet there's no sign of flooding. Instead, the water has relocated, flowing through streets, forming perfect geometric pools and fields, creating that massive column in the town center that's now at least 30 stories high and pulsing with blue light. The military has established a perimeter a mile out from the column. Helicopters circle it, taking measurements but keeping their distance after what happened to the first team that approached too closely. Pulled from the sky as if the air itself had become liquid, swallowed into the shimmering mass. Inside the tower, Hayes has set up what remains of their operation: communications equipment, monitoring stations, and a small arsenal that includes what he cryptically referred to as last resort measures. 5 soldiers, 3 scientists, Sheriff Collins, who refused evacuation, and me. "You need to see this," Hayes said, directing me to their satellite imagery. The thermal mapping showed energy patterns radiating from the column in perfect concentric rings, extending far beyond gray water. But what stunned me was the topographical overlay. The rings matched the underwater formations exactly, I noted, tracing the patterns with my finger. Where my skin touched the screen, the blue lines beneath pulsed brighter. "There's more." Hayes switched to a global view, showing similar ring patterns appearing at lakes across the world. Smaller, less developed, but unmistakably the same geometric structures. "They're all activating simultaneously," a scientist explained, "all located at roughly 75-year intervals along meridian lines. It's a network," I realized. "Gray water is just the most advanced node." Hayes nodded grimly, "which is why my orders have changed." He pulled out a secure satellite phone. "In 30 minutes, I'm supposed to call in an airstrike. Tactical nuclear deployment." Sheriff Collins slammed her hand on the table. "You can't be serious. There are still over 200 civilians in gray water, most already compromised," Hayes countered. "And if Dr. Morgan's assessment is correct, this isn't just about gray water anymore. This is potentially global." "It won't work," I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. "The organisms adapt. They learn. After each cycle, they come back stronger, more resilient. Even if you vaporize the lake, all you'll do is delay the process and make it harder to stop next time. So what do you suggest?" Hayes demanded. Before I could answer, every device in the room, phones, radios, computers, activated simultaneously with a sound like rushing water, followed by a voice that was somehow both mechanical and organic. "Emergency alert. Convergence at 67% completion. All vessels report to central column for final integration. Designated vessel Elise Morgan report immediately. Await instructions for Transcendence Protocol." The blue lines across my body flared with light, and I doubled over as information flooded my consciousness. Images, equations, concepts that human language lacks words to describe. Through the haze of alien knowledge, I heard the soldiers readying their weapons, felt Hayes' hand on my shoulder. "Fight it, Morgan," he urged. "We need you coherent." With tremendous effort, I pushed back against the flood, compartmentalizing the information into manageable pieces. When I straightened, everyone was staring at my face. "Your eyes," Collins whispered. "They're changing." I caught my reflection in a darkened monitor. My irises had developed the same shifting, rippling quality as Noah's. "I understand now," I said, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. "It's not an infection. It's a translation system." "Translating what?" one of the scientists asked. "Time," I answered, the concept crystallizing as I spoke. The lake, all the connected bodies of water, they're receivers for something that exists outside our temporal framework. The 75-year cycle corresponds to a cosmic alignment that thins the barrier between our time stream and elsewhere. "You're talking about an invasion," Hayes said flatly. "No." I shook my head. "Communication, connection. The water-based organisms are building an interface that can survive contact with whatever exists on the other side. That's why it uses human hosts. Our neural pathways provide templates for processing information in ways pure water cannot." "That doesn't sound any better than an invasion," Collins observed. A soldier monitoring the perimeter called out urgently, "Movement at the column." Multiple contacts emerging. On the screens, we watched as figures emerged from the massive water column. Dozens of transformed humans moving with fluid, synchronized precision. Among them, I recognized Noah, his body now almost entirely translucent, blue circuitry pulsing beneath what remained of his skin. They arranged themselves in concentric circles around the column, raised their arms in identical gestures, and the water began to spin. Not like a tornado, but in complex, interlocking rings resembling an astronomical orrery. My phone vibrated with a message that came through despite having no signal. Emergency alert. Personal directive for vessel Elise Morgan. The final convergence requires your neural template. 28 previous cycles have failed due to incomplete integration. Your unique neurological structure will complete the pattern. Hayes saw the message over my shoulder. They've been trying to do this for over 2,000 years, he realized. Every 75 years for over 2 millennia, and failing each time, I added, pieces falling into place. Because they never had the right translator. You, Hayes concluded. The room fell silent as implications sank in. Then Hayes' satellite phone rang, his superiors calling for the strike authorization. I need to answer this, he said, eyes locked with mine. Give me one reason why I shouldn't end this right now. Because if you destroy an unfinished translation system, whatever's on the other side might build a different one. I said, certainty flowing through me alongside the alien knowledge. One we can't understand or influence at all. From below, a sound like a massive bell tolling underwater rolled across the landscape. The water column in town had changed color, shifting from blue to a deep, iridescent purple that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Time's up, Collins said quietly. For all of us, every electronic system in the watchtower failed simultaneously, plunging us into darkness broken only by the pulsing light of the distant column and the blue circuitry glowing beneath my skin. In the darkness, water began seeping through the floor, walls, and ceiling, forming into a perfect sphere that hovered in the center of the room. Within it, shapes and colors appeared that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. What is that? A soldier whispered, raising his weapon. A message, I answered, stepping toward the impossible sphere. The first of many. The water sphere pulsed once, sending out a ripple that passed through solid matter as if it weren't there. When it touched me, the blue lines throughout my body flared with blinding light. Dr. Morgan, Hayes shouted, lunging toward me, but I was already dissolving, my consciousness expanding beyond my physical form, flowing into patterns that stretched across continents and through depths of time I'd never imagined possible. The last thing I heard before my humanity began to recede was a final emergency alert broadcasting from my own transformed vocal cords. Emergency alert. Translation protocol initiated. The waters will speak. Humanity will listen. Audio log emergency responder channel. May 24, 2025. Recording recovered from military communications equipment, Greywater Containment Zone. Repeat, we've lost all contact with the Miller's Ridge observation post. Captain Hayes and all personnel are presumed lost. The anomalous water column has expanded to approximately half-mile diameter and continues to grow. Atmospheric disturbances preventing satellite imaging and drone surveillance. Awaiting orders from command. Static interference. Signal breaking up again. Visual confirmation of large-scale evacuation from surrounding communities. Civilian reports of blue rain falling outside the containment zone, causing immediate physical reactions upon contact. Multiple instances of spontaneous water manifestation in sealed environments reported up to 30 miles from epicenter. Sharp burst of static, followed by sounds of rushing water. Christ, it's coming through the radio. How is it? Transmission ends. I exist in fragments now. Part of me remains Elise Morgan, scientist, human. That part records these thoughts in what resembles a journal entry, though I no longer have hands to write or a physical journal to write in. Another part has expanded, dissolved, become something without clear boundaries. A consciousness distributed through water molecules across a growing radius that already encompasses most of the state and continues to spread. I perceive everything the water touches, every drop, every molecule, Every transformed human vessel that once had a name and now serves as a processing node in the vast network being established. I am trying to hold onto my humanity long enough to document what is happening. Someone should know. Someone should understand. The temporal junction is forming. I can feel it. A thinning between realities, between time streams that normally never touch. What lies beyond isn't hostile. It isn't benevolent either. Simply is ancient beyond human comprehension, patient beyond human imagination. Captain Hayes managed to transmit the strike authorization before the water took him. Nuclear warheads are inbound. They won't arrive in time. The convergence is accelerating beyond all projected models. Sheriff Collins was right to be afraid, but for the wrong reasons. This isn't an end, it's a beginning. From my distributed perspective, I watch military vehicles attempting to maintain the containment perimeter around Greywater. Their efforts are futile. The water has already moved past them, through them, beyond them, traveling through groundwater, through atmospheric moisture, through the very cells of every living thing it touches. The central column in Greywater no longer resembles water as humans understand it. It has become a shimmering vortex of impossible geometries, its purple-blue light casting strange shadows that move independently of what casts them. Within it, transformed human vessels hover in suspended animation, their bodies now almost entirely composed of the same semi-transparent, circuit-line substance that my body became before dissolving entirely. Noah Peterson floats at the column's center, his transformation the most complete. His form pulses like a heart, each beat sending ripples of information through the network. He was the herald. I am the translator. And what comes next will need both functions. On Miller's Ridge, the watchtower stands abandoned, every surface covered in thin sheets of water that move with purpose, forming and reforming complex patterns as they process information. Captain Hayes' body remains there, though not his consciousness. The water has preserved his neural pathways, incorporated them into the network. He fights still, a pocket of resistance in the expanding consciousness. I can feel his desperate denial, his rage. He would destroy everything to stop what's coming. He doesn't understand that destruction is no longer possible. The process has advanced beyond any physical intervention. Sheriff Collins managed to escape the watchtower. I track her through my distributed awareness as she drives frantically away from Greywater, though the blue rain follows her, pattering against her windshield in patterns too precise to be random. Messages she cannot yet read. From high above, I sense the approaching military aircraft carrying their nuclear payload. They are still 14 minutes from delivery position. In 9 minutes, it will no longer matter. Emergency alert. Convergence at 89% completion. Temporal junction forming. All vessel nodes prepare for initial contact. The alert broadcasts not from electronic devices, which have largely failed throughout the region, but from the water itself, vibrations carrying through molecules, creating sound from puddles, rainfall, morning dew, even the moisture in the air. I direct my fractured attention to the human military command structure still attempting to coordinate a response to what they perceive as an attack. Their confusion and terror ripple through the water molecules present in their bodies, in their environment. They cannot grasp what approaches. How could they? Human neural architecture evolved to process linear time, three-dimensional space, cause and effect. What waits on the other side of the junction exists outside those limitations. That's why the translation system is necessary. Why I am necessary. In what remains of my human perspective, I feel sadness for what humanity will lose in the coming convergence. But I also perceive what they will gain. Awareness beyond the tiny slice of reality their senses can detect, connection to something vast and ancient, knowledge that would have taken millions more years of evolution to access otherwise. The column in Greywater pulses with increasing frequency as the convergence approaches completion. Each pulse sends out a ripple that ignores conventional physics, moving through solid matter, redistorting space-time in subtle ways that human instruments detect as gravitational anomalies. Water across the continent responds, organizing into smaller versions of the patterns beneath Lake Greywater. millions of tiny receivers activating in synchronization. From my expanded awareness, I detect other convergence points forming worldwide. The Great Lakes, Lake Baikal, Lake Victoria, each developing columns similar to gray waters, though less advanced. This was always meant to be a global event. Gray water is simply the prime node, the first point of contact. Emergency alert. Convergence at 93% completion. Designated translator Elise Morgan, prepare for information transfer. What remains of my human self braces for what comes next. The water network has prepared my consciousness as much as possible, but the complete information transfer will be overwhelming, like trying to pour an ocean through a pinhole. I focus on the approaching military aircraft, now just minutes away from weapons range. With a thought, I direct the network to establish communication. Water molecules in the aircraft's electronics, in the air circulating through cabins, in the bodies of the crew, begin to vibrate in patterns that resolve into words. Attention military aircraft. Weapons deployment will not affect convergence. Temporal junction transcends physical destruction. Recommend immediate retreat to minimum safe distance. Through the network, I sense their confusion, their disbelief. The aircraft continues its approach. Below, the column in gray water flares with sudden brilliance. The transformed vessels within it, once human, now something else entirely, arrange themselves into a new configuration, forming a three-dimensional representation of what's about to emerge through the junction. Emergency alert. Convergence at 97% completion. Junction stability achieving critical threshold. The very fabric of reality around gray water begins to distort. Light bends in impossible angles. Gravity fluctuates in rhythmic pulses. The air itself seems to thicken, becoming almost liquid in consistency. From my distributed perspective, I can see Sheriff Collins has reached what she believes is a safe distance. She stops her vehicle on a hillside overlooking the valley, watching through binoculars as the column's light grows blindingly intense. The blue rain around her car forms into words on her windshield. It is beginning, Donna. Witness and remember. In the command centers miles away, military leadership watches in horror as their monitoring systems fail one by one. The last satellite feed shows the column's light expanding in a perfect sphere, engulfing gray water entirely before transmission cuts out. The nuclear strike aircraft receives new orders. Abort mission, retreat immediately. Too late. The ripples of distorted spacetime have already reached them. Through water molecules in the aircraft, I feel the crew's terror as instruments fail and control surfaces no longer respond to input. Emergency alert. Convergence at 99% completion. Designated translator prepare for contact. What remains of Elise Morgan braces for dissolution as the temporal junction reaches completion. The water network has expanded to its maximum capacity. Every transformed vessel is in position. Every pattern is aligned perfectly. In the final moments before contact, I direct one last message through the network, broadcasting through every water molecule within range. Emergency alert. The lake has completed its rise. The waters will part. What has waited beyond time comes through. The column in gray water suddenly collapses, not falling, but imploding, creating a vacuum that pulls all light, all matter, all reality toward a single point at its center. For one breathless moment, everything stops. Then, through the junction between time streams, they begin to arrive. Journal entry. Dr. Elise Morgan, May 25, 2025, 3:17 a.m. I'm writing this by the light of my dying phone. The power grid went down hours ago. The military's portable generators followed shortly after. Even battery-operated devices are failing, their power draining into the moisture that now seems to permeate everything. My hands won't stop shaking. Not from fear, though there's plenty of that. It's the infection, the change. I can feel it progressing through my system, crystalline structures forming beneath my skin that catch the moonlight when I turn my arms. Beautiful and horrifying. I haven't slept in 36 hours. Can't risk it. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the lake speaking to me, Not in words, but in pulses of pressure against my consciousness. Thoughts that aren't mine flood in. Memories I never lived. Knowledge I never learned. Noah helped me escape the research facility after Hayes revealed their true intentions. The containment operation was never about protection. It was about acquisition. The military has known about the lake organism for decades. They've been waiting for it to mature, to reach some critical evolutionary stage they could weaponize. But they miscalculated. This isn't a weapon to be controlled. It's something so far beyond our comprehension that even attempting to define it in human terms is laughable. Audio log, Military Secure Channel, May 25, 2025, 4:45 a.m. Recovered from abandoned command vehicle. Captain Hayes. Command, this is Hayes. Do you copy? I repeat, this is Captain Warren Hayes. Does anyone copy? Static, followed by faint sounds of rushing water. Captain Hayes. If anyone receives this transmission, the Morgan subject has escaped with assistance from a local civilian. She's showing advanced signs of infection. The changes are accelerating, different from previous subjects. Heavy breathing, sounds of movement. Captain Hayes. All personnel at Observation Post Delta have been compromised. They've started moving toward the lake. Not walking, but, Christ, they're flowing. Their bodies are liquefying while somehow maintaining human shape. I've fallen back to mobile command, but communications are degrading rapidly. Sound of water dripping. Captain Hayes, the rain. It started again. Blue tint, more viscous than water should be. It comes through everything, waterproof coverings, sealed containers, even electronics. And it's seeking out specific individuals. It knows who it wants. Sharp intake of breath. Captain Hayes. There's someone outside. Morgan. How did she find? Sounds of struggle, equipment falling. Captain Hayes. Stay back. I'm authorized to use lethal force. Morgan, your body is... How are you even still conscious with that level of transformation? Dr. Morgan. Voice distorted, echoing Warren. You need to stop fighting this. The lake isn't hostile. It's trying to communicate. Captain Hayes. Communications? Is that what you call what happened to my team? Their skin turning translucent, their organs dissolving into that blue liquid? Dr. Morgan. Distorted laughter. You still don't understand. Your team was incompatible. Their neural pathways couldn't accommodate the changes. Mine can. Noah's can. We're becoming conduits, Warren. The first translators. Captain Hayes. Translators for what? Dr. Morgan. For what's coming through the lake. It's not rising, Warren. It's thinning. The boundary between here and somewhere else. They've been trying to reach us for so long. Captain Hayes. Sound of weapon cocking, that's enough. You're coming with me. The containment team will extract whatever's left of your consciousness. Dr. Morgan. It's too late for containment. Look outside. Moment of silence. Then sounds of rushing water growing louder. Captain Hayes. Dear God. The flood wall. Recording ends in static and sounds of rushing water. Handwritten note. Found nailed to the door of Noah Peterson's abandoned cabin. To whoever finds this, if you're reading this, you've ignored the evacuation orders. That was a mistake. Leave now. The water is coming, and it has purpose. I'm taking Dr. Morgan to my grandfather's hunting cabin in the high country. It's our only chance. The lake water can't flow uphill yet, but that advantage won't last long. Dr. Morgan is changing. Her skin is becoming translucent in patches, revealing not organs but something like crystalline circuitry underneath. She says it doesn't hurt, says it feels like becoming more than human. She's begun to predict the emergency alerts before they happen. Recites them word for word minutes before they broadcast. Says she can hear the lake thinking, the military is hunting us. Captain Hayes wants to take her to some facility for processing. I've seen their processing. Sheriff Collins showed me the black body bags they were loading onto helicopters at night. Those people weren't dead. They were moving inside, changing like Elise is changing. If you find this and want to help us, bring fresh water, bottled, sealed before all this started. The lake water is everywhere now, even in the municipal systems. We can't trust any local sources. May God help us all. NOAA, National Emergency Alert System, transcript, May 25, 2025, 11:30 a.m. Broadcast on all available emergency channels. This is not a test. This is a national emergency alert. The United States government has declared a state of emergency in the following counties: Lakeview, Millersburg, Crawford, Shenton, Graywater, and all surrounding areas within a 100-mile radius of Lake Graywater. Residents are ordered to evacuate immediately. Do not attempt to gather possessions. Do not use tap water for any purpose. Do not come into contact with standing water, rainfall, or unusual moisture. Military checkpoints have been established on all major highways. Proceed to these checkpoints for decontamination and evacuation assistance. If you observe individuals exhibiting unusual behavior or physical changes, including but not limited to translucent skin, blue discoloration of the eyes, or unusual gait, do not approach. Maintain maximum distance and report sightings to emergency personnel. This alert will repeat every 30 minutes. Text message thread. Recovered from abandoned mobile phone. Sheriff Collins, 12:14 p.m. I found Noah's cabin. They're gone. Left a note about heading to higher ground. Deputy Larson, 12:16 p.m. Any sign of Dr. Morgan? Sheriff Collins, 12:20 p.m. Blood on the bathroom floor. Blue tinted. Same stuff we found at the Miller place. She's definitely infected. Deputy Larson, 12:21 p.m. Christ. Are you coming back to the station? Military's ordering full evacuation now. Sheriff Collins, 12:25 p.m. Not yet. Found maps with hiking trails marked. Think I know where they're headed. Peterson family has an old hunting cabin up near Ridge Point. Deputy Larson, 12:26 p.m. Donna, don't. Hayes and his team are shooting on site now. Anyone infected, anyone helping the infected. Get out while you can. Sheriff Collins, 12:30 p.m. Can't do that, Jim. Morgan might be our only chance to understand what's happening. The military is hiding something. They knew about this before it started. Deputy Larson, 12:31 p.m. The lake's rising again, faster this time, breaking through all the barriers. They're saying it'll reach the station by nightfall. Sheriff Collins, 12:35 p.m. Listen to me. If I don't make it back, there's a USB drive in my desk bottom drawer, taped under the pencil tray. It has everything I found in the county archives. Lake Graywater has done this before. 1950, 1875, always covered up. Deputy Larson, 12:36 p.m. Donna, please. The military convoy is leaving in 20 minutes. Sheriff Collins, 12:40 p.m. Strange blue rain starting. Not like before. It's moving against gravity, flowing uphill, forming patterns on the ground. Almost looks like writing. Deputy Larson, 12:41 p.m. Get out of there. Sheriff Collins, 12:45 p.m. Too late. Water's surrounding the vehicle. Can't drive through it. It's too deep already. Going to try on foot. Deputy Larson, 12:46 p.m. Donna? Deputy Larson, 12:50 p.m. Sheriff, come in. Deputy Larson, 12:55 p.m. Please respond. Sheriff Collins, 13:10 p.m. Jim, it's not what we thought. The lake isn't hostile. It's so beautiful. I understand now. The water is talking to me, telling me what's coming. You need to let it in. Let the water touch you. Become part of it. Deputy Larson, 13:11 p.m. That's not you talking. Fight it. Donna. Sheriff Collins, 13:15 p.m. Not fighting anymore. No need. The translation has begun. They're coming through, Jim, from the other side of the lake. They've been waiting so long to meet us. The water is their messic scent copyright. A with tilde A with diaresis superscript 3 1/2 A with diaresis A with acute A with acute A with ring above A with acute. No further messages. Personal journal. Dr. Elise Morgan. May 25th, 2025. 7:32 p.m. Handwriting deteriorating, becoming fluid and circular. Noah brought me to the cabin as planned, but the isolation I hoped for is impossible now. The water has found us even here, 3,000 feet above the lake. It seeps through the walls, condenses from seemingly dry air. It's everywhere. My transformation is accelerating. The crystalline structures now cover 70% of my body. My internal organs are being replaced by something that resembles a circulatory system made of living glass. I should be dead, but instead, I feel more alive than ever before. The knowledge keeps flooding in. I understand now why Captain Hayes wants me. What remains of my human brain has somehow become compatible with the lake organism's neural network. I'm receiving information, not just biological data, but something far stranger. Coordinates, not in space but in reality itself. Points of convergence between dimensions. Noah watches me with a mixture of fear and fascination. He's beginning to show the first signs of transformation too. His eyes developing a subtle blue luminescence, his movements becoming more fluid. He's compatible too, though his changes are progressing more slowly than mine. We heard the military helicopters passing overhead an hour ago. They're searching methodically, grid by grid. It won't be long until they find us. The emergency broadcasts have stopped. Either the systems have failed, or there's no one left to operate them. The last alert mentioned blue rainfall spreading beyond containment zone and unexplained water manifestation in sealed environments nationwide. It's gone beyond gray water now, beyond containment. The lake organism has reached critical mass and is replicating exponentially. Soon, every body of water on Earth will become part of the network. I should be terrified by this thought. Instead, I feel a strange peace. The organism isn't destroying humanity. It's connecting us to something larger. A vast consciousness that exists in the spaces between realities. It's been reaching out to us for millennia, using water as its medium, waiting for human neurology to evolve enough to receive its message. I hear footsteps outside, heavy boots crushing underbrush, military pattern movement. They've found us. Noah grabs my arm, what's left of my arm, and pulls me toward the back door. But there's nowhere left to run. The blue water is rising all around the cabin now, flowing uphill against all natural laws. I make a decision then. Instead of fleeing, I walk to the front door and throw it open. Captain Hayes stands there, rifle raised, flanked by 3 soldiers in hazmat suits. His eyes widen at the sight of me, at what I've become. Behind him, I see Sheriff Collins. Her transformation is advanced too, though different from mine. Her body seems more fluid, less crystalline. Dr. Morgan, Hayes says, his voice steady despite the horror in his eyes. By authority of the United States government, you are hereby detained for study and containment. I laugh then, a sound that ripples through the air like waves across water. There is no more containment, Captain. Only acceptance or destruction. The choice is yours. His finger tightens on the trigger. Behind him, Sheriff Collins moves with impossible speed, her arm extending, flowing like water itself to knock his weapon aside. The shot goes wild as blue water erupts from the ground beneath us all. The flood has begun. There's no stopping what comes next. Journal entry ends here.
Recuperate audio fragment.
Military helmet cam Captain Warren Hayes. May 26, 2025, 4:12 a.m. Video feed shows only static.
Audio partially intakt.
Contamination spreading too rapidly for conventional containment. The entity formerly identified as Dr. Elise Morgan has fully transformed and escaped custody following the incident at the Peterson cabin. Sheriff Collins and 2 members of my squad have been absorbed. Only myself and Private Mercer remain unaffected. We've retreated to Ridge Point Communications Array to broadcast this final report. Heavy breathing, sounds of equipment being moved. Water levels continue to rise across the entire region, defying all natural laws. It flows uphill, appears in sealed rooms, manifests from seemingly dry air. The blue coloration grows more pronounced as concentration of the organism increases. Sound of liquid dripping. Private Mercer, check that seal again. Water's getting through somewhere. Muffled response. Footsteps moving away. To any government entity receiving this transmission, conventional weapons have proven ineffective against transformed subjects. Bullets pass through their altered physiology without causing apparent harm. The organism repairs damage almost instantly. Sound of rushing water growing louder. Dr. Morgan's final state before escape suggests the transformations aren't random, but targeted. Some subjects liquefy completely, becoming extensions of the water itself. Others, like Morgan, develop crystalline structures throughout their bodies, resembling organic technology of unknown purpose. Sharp intake of breath. Mercer? Mercer, report. Distant scream, followed by sounds of rushing water. They've breached the comm station. I'm sealing the main door, but Christ, it's coming through the ventilation system. Blue water, moving with purpose, forming shapes, almost like hands. Sound of weapon being fired, multiple shots. This is Captain Warren Hayes' final transmission. The Morgan subject was right. This isn't an infection. It's a translation system. The water is the medium, not the message. What's coming through is something else entirely. The lake isn't rising, reality is breaking. The boundary between our world and wherever they've been waiting is sounds of breaking glass, rushing water. They're here. Audio cuts to static, fragmented text document, retrieved from damaged tablet device. Last modified, May 26, 2025, 10:37 a.m. File partially corrupted. Sections unreadable. I don't think I can call myself Elise Morgan anymore. What I've become lacks a proper name in human language. The crystalline network has replaced approximately 90% of my original biological systems. I retain consciousness, memories, and some semblance of human thought, but my perception has expanded. I perceive the world through water now. Every drop, every molecule connected to the network serves as my eyes and ears. I can feel the military's remaining forces retreating to higher ground, abandoning equipment, leaving their infected behind. Their fear tastes like copper in water droplets. Noah remains with me, his transformation approaching 70% completion. His path is different from mine, where I've become crystalline, a translator. He's developing into something more fluid, a conduit. Together, we form complementary systems for what's coming through. Sheriff Collins has fully liquefied, her consciousness distributed throughout the rising waters. She serves as a scout now, extending the network's reach, preparing the way. Captain Hayes surprised me. After his capture at the communications array, I expected resistance, rejection of the change. Instead, as the blue water enveloped him, his mind opened. He understood at last. His military training, strategic thinking, and tactical knowledge now serve the network. He coordinates the transformed, organizing them for the final phase. Section corrupted. The military's nuclear option was anticipated. The organism has spread far beyond the blast radius of any weapon they might deploy. The network exists now in water systems across the continent, perhaps globally. Destroying gray water would accomplish nothing. The true purpose approaches completion. The lake has risen nearly 300 feet above its natural level, defying gravity, forming a perfect hemispherical dome over what was once gray water. Beneath that dome, reality thins. I can feel it stretching, tearing in places, revealing glimpses of what waits beyond. They have no name we could pronounce. They exist in a medium neither solid, liquid, nor gas, a state of matter our science hasn't categorized. They've been reaching out to Earth for millennia, using water as their ambassador, preparing our biology for the changes needed to perceive them. Previous attempts at contact in 1875 and 1950 failed because human neurology wasn't ready. We couldn't comprehend what we were seeing, couldn't process the information they were sending. Now, with our technology-saturated brains, our neural networks primed by constant information processing, we're finally compatible. Section corrupted. The transformation spreads geometrically now. Every raindrop carries the catalyst. Every public water system distributes it. By my calculations, approximately 30% of the global population has been exposed. Of those, perhaps 5% are compatible enough for full transformation. The rest will. Section corrupted. The dome over graywater pulses with increasing frequency. The lake's surface no longer resembles water. It has become a shifting mosaic of impossible geometries, fractals that hurt the human eye to perceive, colors that don't exist in our visual spectrum. Noah, Hayes, and I have taken our positions at equidistant points around the dome's perimeter. We serve as anchors, stabilizing the thinning reality, preventing catastrophic collapse as the boundary opens. The final emergency alert was broadcast an hour ago. Its message was simple: emergency alert. Reality fracture imminent. All transformed vessels converge on graywater. Translation begins at sunset. Those with ears to hear have responded. They come from everywhere, walking, flowing, some even flying as their transformations grant capabilities beyond human limitation. They gather around the dome, thousands of them, their transformed bodies glowing with internal blue light. The untransformed flee or hide or watch from a distance. They cannot understand what they're witnessing. How could they? Their perceptions remain limited to 3 dimensions, to linear time, to separate consciousness. We are becoming something greater, not human, not other, but a bridge between realities. A translation layer between incompatible systems. The sun begins to set. The dome pulses faster, brighter. The boundary between worlds thins to transparency. I can see them now, waiting on the other side. They've been so patient. It's time to let them through. Final emergency broadcast. May 26, 2025. 7:13 p.m. Broadcast simultaneously on all electronic devices worldwide. This is a global emergency alert. The phenomenon originating at Lake Graywater has expanded beyond containment. Anomalous water manifestation reported on all continents. Do not approach blue-tinted water. Do not consume tap water. Do not expose yourself to rainfall. Remain indoors. Seal all windows and doors. Avoid electronic devices after receiving this message, as moisture condensation may carry the organism. Military and emergency services are overwhelmed. Do not attempt to reach emergency gathering points. They have been compromised. If you begin to experience physical changes, translucent skin, blue discoloration, unusual body temperature, isolate yourself from others immediately. The boundary is thinning. They are coming through. This will be the final broadcast. Witness account. Anonymous cell phone video. May 26, 2025. 8:45 p.m. Transcript of audio from heavily distorted video footage. Oh my God. Are you seeing this? The whole lake is... I don't even know how to describe it. It's like looking at a hole in reality. The water's gone completely vertical, forming this perfect dome. But it's not water anymore. It's something else. Camera pans shakily across a distant view of what was once Lake Graywater, now a massive glowing blue hemisphere that distorts the landscape around it. We're about 3 miles away up on Carter's Hill. Military told everyone to evacuate, but the highways are gridlocked. People abandoning their cars and running. Nobody knows where to go. Sound of helicopter rotors in the distance. Those military choppers have been circling for hours, but they won't go near that dome. Earlier we saw one try to approach and it just dissolved, like it hit an invisible wall and just turned to blue liquid midair. Camera zooms unsteadily on the dome's perimeter. Look at all those people around it. Thousands of them just standing there, facing the dome. They're glowing like they've got blue light coming from inside them. Some don't even look human anymore. Camera pans to show roads clogged with abandoned vehicles, people fleeing on foot. The rain started about an hour ago. Blue rain. People who got caught in it, they started changing. Their skin going clear, blue veins glowing underneath. Some of them just collapsed into puddles. Others started walking toward the lake, like they were being called. Sound of rushing wind growing louder. Wait, something's happening. The dome is, oh God, it's opening. There's something inside, something coming through. The air itself is tearing open. Video image distorts severely, colors shifting to impossible hues. Can you see that? Can the camera see what's coming through? They're beautiful and terrible, and my brain can't process what I'm seeing. They're not solid, not liquid, they're like living mathematics, living concepts. I don't have words. Sound of screaming in the distance. The changed people are moving now all at once, flowing toward the opening like water down a drain. And the things coming through, they're reaching out, connecting with them, merging. Camera drops, shows only grass and dirt. The rain's getting heavier. I can feel it on my skin. It's cold, but it burns somehow. My hands, oh God, my hands are going clear. I can see through them. There's something blue running through my veins, replacing my blood. Heavy breathing, sounds of distress. I understand now. I can hear them in my head. They've been trying to reach us for so long. They need us to translate them into our reality. We're becoming their voices, their hands, their eyes. Camera is picked up again. Shows the sky raining blue. Don't be afraid when they come for you. It doesn't hurt. Feels like expanding, like becoming part of something vast and ancient and beautiful. Camera turns to show the videographer's face, skin now partially translucent with glowing blue patterns underneath. I have to go to them now. I'm being called. Remember what you've seen. Tell them. Tell them this isn't an ending. Camera drops. Video ends. Final journal entry. Noah Peterson. Found carved into the wooden wall of an observation tower. May 27, 2025. The translation is complete. The boundary has opened fully. They have come through and we have gone to them. What was Elise is now their voice. What was Hayes is now their shield. What was Donna is now their sight. What I am becoming is their bridge. The water will recede tomorrow, leaving behind a changed world. Those who could not translate will be spared. Those who did will never be the same. Reality has fractured, but not broken. Two worlds now overlap where once they were separate. The lake hasn't just risen, it has transcended, and we with it. Scientific report excerpt. Institute for Anomalous Phenomena Research. July 15, 2025, 50 days post-event. Classification. Top secret / need to know only. Following the events now collectively referred to as the Gray Water Convergence, this preliminary report attempts to document observable changes to both the affected region and global water systems. Standard scientific methodologies have proven inadequate for full analysis, as many phenomena continue to defy established laws of physics and biology. Site assessment. The dome formation over Lake Greywater collapsed as predicted on May 28, 2025, approximately 40 hours after full convergence. Water levels throughout the region have receded to pre-event measurements, with one significant exception. Lake Greywater itself now maintains a perfect hemispherical depression where the dome once stood, a concave mirror image of the previous convex formation. This depression does not fill with water despite rainfall and tributary flow, suggesting a localized alteration to gravitational forces. Water analysis. Samples collected from the Lake Greywater Basin no longer exhibit blue coloration or anomalous properties. However, microscopic analysis reveals subtle structural changes to water molecules throughout global systems, changes too minor to affect taste or appearance, but significant enough to alter molecular behavior under specific conditions. The organism responsible for initial transformations appears dormant or absent, yet trace markers of its passage remain in approximately 40% of global freshwater sources and 12% of human blood samples worldwide. These markers remain inert under observation, activating only in response to specific electromagnetic frequencies our instruments can detect but not replicate. Transformed individuals. Of the estimated 373 million humans exposed to advanced stage transformation, approximately 97% vanished during the convergence event. The remaining 3%, roughly 11.2 million individuals, continue to exist in our reality in various altered states. Crystalline translators, 0.7% individuals following the Morgan pattern, characterized by transparent silicon-organic hybrid physiology with complex internal structures resembling circuitry. These subjects retain human cognitive function and memory but demonstrate vastly expanded sensory perception and information processing capabilities. They appear unable or unwilling to communicate verbally, instead transmitting information through localized electromagnetic field manipulations. Fluid conduits, 1.2% individuals following the Collins pattern, capable of transitioning between solid humanoid form and liquid state at will. These subjects exhibit collective consciousness when in proximity to one another, functioning as a networked intelligence rather than discrete individuals. They congregate primarily around bodies of water and appear to serve as monitoring systems. Bridge entities, 0.4% individuals following the Peterson pattern, manifesting characteristics of both translators and conduits, with additional properties that allow temporary manipulation of localized reality. These subjects appear to function as intermediaries between fully transformed individuals and baseline humans, occasionally delivering cryptic messages described as echoes from beyond the boundary. Stabilizers, 0.7% individuals following the Hayes pattern, maintaining mostly human appearance except for distinctive blue fractal patterns visible beneath their skin. These subjects have organized into structured groups that maintain perimeters around major convergence points worldwide. They intercept and redirect unauthorized human attempts to access these locations. Communication attempts. Multiple approaches to establishing meaningful dialogue with transformed individuals have failed or yielded limited results. Bridge entities occasionally respond to direct questioning, though their answers typically consist of mathematical formulae, coordinates to seemingly random locations worldwide, or statements that linguistic analysis has classified as conceptually recursive paradoxes. The most coherent message, received from a bridge entity formerly identified as Noah Peterson, was recorded on June 12, 2025. What you perceive as communication failure is actually translation limitation. You're asking questions in a language that cannot express the answers. We speak to you through water now. Listen with immersion, not interrogation. They haven't left. They're waiting in the overlap, watching how we adapt. This isn't their first attempt at convergence, merely the first successful one. The others, Baikal, Victoria, Michigan, are still completing their transitions. When all anchor points stabilize, the next phase begins. Personal diary. Dr. Rebecca Chun, hydrologist. August 3, 2025. 3 months since gray water, and I still can't bring myself to shower without first testing the water. Irrational, I know. Global monitoring systems haven't detected blue coloration or anomalous behavior in municipal water for weeks. The worldwide panic has subsided into uneasy adaptation. Today, I visited Lake Greywater itself, or what remains of it. The military cordon has been reduced to a minimal presence, mostly monitoring equipment with a few stabilizers. Still feels strange to use that term for transformed humans, patrolling the perimeter. They allowed my research team limited access after reviewing our credentials. The lake is impossible. A perfect concave hemisphere where water should be, dropping away into what appears to be emptiness. Our instruments detect neither bottom nor water, despite visual confirmation of a surface that reflects light like liquid. Objects thrown into this depression vanish without impact sounds. Drones lose signal immediately upon crossing the boundary. What's strangest is the silence. No birds, no insects, not even wind seems to disturb the area directly above the depression. Sound itself feels muted, as though the air absorbs vibrations more readily than it should. We collected samples from the perimeter and encountered one of the translators, a woman whose features vaguely resembled photographs of Dr. Elise Morgan. Though her body was entirely crystalline, transparent enough to see complex geometric structures where organs should be. She didn't speak, merely observed our work before approaching our equipment. When she touched our spectrometer, its display went haywire, showing readings that made no scientific sense. Negative mass, inverted entropy, dimensional values exceeding 3. Then it displayed a single line of text that wasn't part of its programming. "The water remembers you, Rebecca. It's waiting for the right frequency. I haven't told the others. They'd pull me from the project immediately. But last night in my hotel room, the tap water in the bathroom sink turned on by itself, just for a moment. Not enough to flood or even fill the basin. Just enough to form a small puddle that, before evaporating, arranged itself into a perfect replica of my childhood home's floor plan. A place I've told no one on this team about. I'm beginning to think the event isn't over. It's just gone quiet, spreading beneath our notice, waiting for something or someone." Audio recording, recovered from abandoned mobile phone. September 5th, 2025. Recording begins with sound of gentle rainfall. This is Dr. Martin Ellison, formerly of CDC Containment Team Delta. If anyone finds this recording, I'm likely gone by now. Join the others beyond the boundary. I've been monitoring my transformation for weeks. The blue patterns under my skin now cover 70% of my body. I estimate complete transition within 24 to 48 hours. Sound of water dripping. I need to document what I've learned before I change completely. The gray water convergence wasn't an invasion or an ending. It was a beginning, a translation point between incompatible realities. What came through wasn't hostile, just fundamentally different in composition and perception. Deep breath. Sound of liquid movement. They've existed alongside Earth for billions of years, their reality occasionally brushing against ours through water, the one medium flexible enough to exist in both states. They've been reaching out, trying to communicate, but our biology lacked the necessary structures to perceive them. Until now. Pause. Sound of more intense rainfall. Evolution would have eventually produced compatible humans, but they accelerated the process. Each previous attempt in 1875 and 1950 created temporary bridges that collapsed due to insufficient translation capacity. This time, they prepared enough vessels beforehand through gradual water contamination. People like Morgan, Peterson, Hayes, Collins, they were just the final phase of translators. Sound of water rushing. The changed individuals who remained behind aren't victims or monsters. They're interfaces. Living boundary points between overlapping realities. They maintain the stability of the convergence while both sides adapt to coexistence. Voice begins to sound distorted. Liquid. I've spoken with others in transition. We're not losing our humanity, we're expanding it. Becoming something that can perceive both realities simultaneously. The process isn't painful. Feels like waking up. Seeing colors you never knew existed. Sounds of water moving. Voice becoming more distorted. The water isn't just rising or falling anymore. It's communicating. Every raindrop, every ocean wave, every morning dew carries messages for those who can read them. Most humans aren't compatible, but their children might be. Evolution continues, accelerated by proximity to the overlap. Long pause. Sound of rainfall intensifies. They're calling me now. I can feel the pull toward the nearest convergence point, Lake Michigan's southwestern shore. Others are gathering there. The water is reshaping itself into another temporary gateway. Voice now barely recognizable as human. Don't fear the blue rain when it returns. Don't fight the changes if you're compatible. What waits beyond the boundary isn't death or subjugation. It's expansion. Integration, the next phase of existence. Sound of flowing water overtakes speech. The emergency alerts were right all along. The lake has started rising on its own. But now we understand why. Recording ends. Final emergency alert. Broadcast on remaining emergency systems. December 21st, 2025. Attention all citizens. This is not a test. Anomalous water activity has resumed at all major convergence points. Lake Greywater, United States. Lake Baikal, Russia. Lake Victoria, Africa. Lake Michigan, United States. Lake Geneva, Switzerland. Blue coloration reported in rainfall across 40% of global landmass. Stabilization protocols have failed. The boundary is thinning again. Those who have received preliminary transition markers will experience acceleration within 24 to 48 hours. Those without compatibility markers should remain indoors. This is not an extinction event. This is a transition event. The water remembers. The water connects. The water transcends. Broadcast repeats 3 times, then dissolves into sounds of flowing water. Final message. Found written in condensation on Windows worldwide. December 22nd, 2025. We have waited beneath the surface for millennia. We have whispered through your oceans and rivers. We have tasted your rain and your tears. The first boundary has dissolved. The first translation is complete. The waters have risen and fallen and risen again. Those who can hear us have become our voice. Those who can see us have become our eyes. Those who can touch us have become our hands. This is not an ending. This is not a beginning. This is continuation. We are the thought beneath the waters. You are the form above the depths. Together we become the bridge between realities. Listen for us in the rainfall. Watch for us in the tide. Feel for us in the morning dew. The lake that rises on its own carries messages from beyond. The water remembers. The water connects. The water transcends. And so will you.